Have you ever read the book of Revelation and thought, what in the world is going on here? We have dragons, beasts, bowls of wrath, the four horsemen of the apocalypse, and of course, the mark of the beast, 666. What does all of this stuff mean? Like a lot of people, I was taught that Revelation was a roadmap to the end of the world. I believed in a coming tribulation, a global Antichrist, and a literal 1,000-year reign of Christ on the earth. So what is Revelation about anyway? Is it a roadmap for the future apocalypse or a retelling of past events? Maybe it's both. Stick around as we look at this important book of the Bible. Welcome to episode 1 of Back from the Future. This video is the beginning of my journey from futurism to preterism. Now, futurism is the belief that the majority of Revelation is yet to take place in the future. Most futurists believe that most everything from Revelation 4 and beyond has actually not taken place yet. Most futurists read Revelation more chronologically. Their key verse is from Revelation 1:19 that says, "Write therefore the things that you have seen, those that are, and those that are about to take place after this." Preterism, on the other hand, which is a Latin word that means in the past, teaches that Revelation was future to the writers who wrote it, but has now already taken place, with the exception of Christ's second coming, the resurrection of the dead, and then the final eternal destinies of the wicked and the righteous. Now, preterism reads Revelation not chronologically, but what would be called recapitulation. Instead of a timeline, think of the book being broken up into columns, with each column telling a similar story, but maybe in a slightly different way. A key verse for preterists would be Revelation 1:1 that says, "The revelation of Jesus Christ, which God gave him to show to his servants the things that must soon take place." So preterists believe that these images and signs were given to John to let his generation be warned of the coming destruction of Jerusalem in 70 AD. It's kind of like the Olivet Discourse in Matthew 24, but maybe on steroids. Futurists debate over whether they debate over when it was written. Preterists put the writing around 65 AD, whereas futurists put it around 95 AD. And I will discuss this more in the next episode. Now, let me give you some background. I started off as a futurist, but not the rapture 7 years tribulation futurist. I held to what is called historic premillennialism. I never read the Left Behind series, although I was given a set, but I was definitely influenced by the broader worldview it represents, as it seems to kind of be the predominant view of evangelicalism. We've seen the cars with the bumper stickers that read, "In case of rapture, this car will be unmanned." I was taught that things in the world were getting worse and worse, politically, morally, spiritually. Israel had a central role in God's end times plan. And if you want, you can check out my video on Israel. I was taught that Revelation was pretty much a future map of global decline, tribulation, and complete chaos. In short, it was a pessimistic eschatology, which is the study of the end times, one where the world spirals into darkness until Jesus comes to rescue the faithful. But the more I studied Scripture, the more I began to ask, is that the story that the Bible actually tells us? As I prepared to teach on Revelation, I revisited passages like Matthew 24, the Olivet Discourse, and started to wonder, have we misunderstood these texts? Were they really about our future, or were they speaking to Jesus' own generation? The question opened up the door to something I never expected. A move toward a more victorious and hopeful eschatology, one that sees Christ reigning now, his kingdom advancing, and Revelation as a message of triumph, not terror. As I mentioned before, things started to shift when I began preparing a sermon series on Revelation. I wanted to teach it faithfully, not just repeat what I'd heard from most Bible scholars and pastors. Studied deeper and deeper, I kept running into some serious problems that caused me to ask some serious questions, like why would God give a terrifying message to 7 real churches in the first century if it had nothing to do with their lives? And why does John say the time is near in Revelation 1:3 if it meant 2,000 years later? And then also, like, why does Jesus say in Matthew 24, this generation will not pass away until all these things take place? Suddenly, I wasn't confident I understood the timeline. And worse, I wasn't sure I understood the point. I remember the exact moment it hit me. What if Revelation isn't primarily about the future, but mostly about the past? What if John was writing to real churches going through real trials, and that he was warning people of the judgment coming on Jerusalem in 70 AD? What if that was the main message? At first, it felt like heresy. I kept telling myself, I can't tell anyone about my findings. But as I shared my conclusions, I find out more and more people around me agreeing with what I had discovered. Things started to make sense. The beast wasn't necessarily some future dictator. Maybe it was Rome or Nero. Maybe the harlot wasn't the UN or some worldly system, but possibly apostate Israel. Maybe the tribulation wasn't 7 years in our future, but already happening in the time it was written. This wasn't about lessening Scripture's authority. It was about finally letting it speak on its own without any fanciful interpretations. Maybe the locusts from the bottomless pit in Revelation 9 were not attack Apache helicopters, but rather an image of destruction from the book of Joel. John used over 400 references from the Old Testament. It is from the Old Testament that we unlock the key to interpretation. Revelation definitely has left many people with many questions. Maybe you've had similar questions. Maybe you've never questioned your view of Revelation at all. Maybe you're curious, or maybe you think I'm crazy. That's okay too. You would not be the first one to say that, especially when I challenged the preconceived and predominant futurist view of Revelation. That is exactly what this channel is about, pursuing truth at all cost. So, all I ask is this: stick around, take a journey with me. In episode 2, I'll explain what preterism is and why it helped me make more sense of the Bible, the church, and the mission of God in the world today. End time stuff can get pretty crazy, and interpretations can often seem fanciful and strange, but let's look closer at what the Bible has to say. To that, you can make up your own mind. Take a moment to subscribe, comment below, and let's pursue truth at all cost. Join me next week for part 2, What is Partial Preterism?